the goal of the webinar today was to just introduce you to some of the tools that we have developed out of the Project One, which, as you will recall, was had two components. The first component was the was a scoping review based on academic literature, and the second one was an environmental scan that was a kind of social media kind of thing. And both of them, the goal of both of them, and maybe we'll just go back, Sarah, to the last one. The goal of both of them was to explore the nature and the scope of organizational interventions that were aimed at improving access to primary care for vulnerable populations. And what we really want to present to you today is kind of like the result of that, because one of the things that we did with that was based on the descriptions of what we found. We developed a typology of components of those interventions so that we could kind of get a good understanding of the different organizational characteristics that the interventions were aimed at modifying. So very quickly, I know that you have probably seen the typology, but one of the issues that we found relatively quickly on, if we could just advance the slide, Sarah. One more. One of the things that we found was that it was really impossible to make a typology of the interventions themselves because they were all composed of quite complex, they were complex interventions in that they were made up of various components and that they were combined in different ways. So there would be one element, for instance, a community health worker, that would be combined with different other components across studies. So it was really difficult to see how they fit together. So what we've done is that we decided to make the typology of the components rather than of the intervention pieces. And this is just a recall of the typology. Next slide, please. What we did was that we tried to use standard labels wherever we could, something like advanced access or community health workers, for instance. But there were pieces of interventions that kind of repeated across different studies that don't necessarily have a standard label, and we kind of created a label for those and then a little definition. For instance, somebody who proactively identified unmet needs. And there were some components that actually are combinations already of components, but they sort of hold together as a kind of standard package, like case management, for example. So wherever we could do that, we did. And this is the typology of the intervention components that you have seen, and we just want to do, a quick overview of them. First thing, I guess, to state is that, as you know, again, this is the access framework that we keep using, and we have tried specifically, and in the typology, we really organize things to see how they respond to elements of approachability, acceptability, availability and accommodation, affordability and appropriateness. And we identify the components that identify principally those areas. And we've organized the typology so that there are what we're calling main components and secondary components. And I want to explain just really briefly what that is. Within, some of them are things that are kind of, that seem to be like the core of the intervention, and that if you had to label it one thing, you'd say our intervention is a community health worker, or our intervention is a mobile health clinic, or our intervention is about virtual visits or telemedicine, something like that. But a lot of them have secondary components that kind of get added onto those main components, which can be things like proactive identification of need, extended hours, broader definition of roles, and so on. And then in our typology, we've just tried to indicate things that came from the literature, the scientific literature, and those that came from the environmental scan from social media, for which there is less information about evaluation. Next slide, please. So this is just, you will be aware of it, but just to go over, we've organized all of the intervention components by the main dimensions and organizational on the supply side that they're addressing. So approachability, acceptability, accommodation and availability, affordability, and appropriateness. And so that's what you see here in the third column over, is that that's the principal dimension that they are addressing. And so these are, on the left-hand side is the labels we've given. We've tried to provide a description that should be relatively mutually exclusive. We tried to do that. Then the principal dimension, and then the other dimensions that are addressed. And then here is where you see the secondary and the secondary components. So we have organized the whole typology like this, and really the challenge was then to provide you with access to the interventions and to source data that provided this. So we've approached this in two different ways for both the literature review, the scientific literature review, and the social media scan. And I'm going to now pass this over and ask Sarah to present to you what we have done for the to give you access to the source data for the scientific literature, and then Laura Lee is going to present to you the tool that we've developed for the second component. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Jeannie. So yeah, so we've started working on a database. It's not complete yet, but you will have access to this early tomorrow morning, Canada time here in Quebec. So a link will be put on Partage, probably on the LIP implementation committee, but you will receive an email to specify where you can find the link, the username, and the password to have access to this database. So we're using a software that is available online, and it's free. It's called Mendeley. And this helps us organize the PDF documents that were kept, the studies that were kept from the Project 1, Component 1 study, so the swooping review. And you have it here. So this is the list of all the studies that were included in the typology, and that helped us develop that typology. So what we wanted to do is give you something that you can search through, so you can have ideas of articles and interventions that are defined, or that has components that have access framework components. So for example, what you see now on the screen is the list in the middle. Here you have the details of this particular article here, which is limited impact on the patient and so on. So what we've started doing is to put, if there's any outcomes in a specific document, we put it here in the abstract, because if you double click on the document, you have access to that PDF. So we don't need to put the abstract in this box here. So here, what we put is the outcomes. So if this intervention had any impact on the outcomes, impact on access to primary health care, or if they have any results concerning outcomes, so it could have no results or no particular outcome, it still will be here in that box. And we started tagging, if I can say, the articles. So the tags are all the components you can find in the typology. For example, if you wanted to know more about the intervention, about the use of a health broker, you could just click on the tag and you'll have all the articles that contain something related to the health broker. Then you can go and just read the article and see if that has any information that is useful for your particular context or intervention that you want to put in place. And if you go into the notes, what we're trying to also add is details, for example, the country, the the specific intervention, the design of the study, the population that it targets, the setting in which the intervention was put in place, and the different components that compose that specific intervention. So I think that's about it for the database. You will all have access to it tomorrow, like I just said. And it's fairly easy to use. And you can always search with the keywords, which here it's called the author's keywords. It's just that we cannot change the categories. But if you go here, if you want to filter by author's keywords, you can just click acceptability, and you'll have a list of, the list will be longer because we haven't finished yet, but you have a list of different intervention that does touch about, that do have an accessibility related topic in it. And the other thing is that this will also help you probably transfer information to Project 2 team. For example, if you wanted to, if all the articles that are on my screen at the moment are pertinent to your study, you could just select them all, you copy them, so copy them, and then you could just create a document, and you'll have your reference list right away.
So Sarah, can I just stop you right there and just take any questions that people have?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going, so thank you. So does anybody has any question about the use of the database, or would that, do you think that some information are missing? You would like to see something else added to this database? I don't know.
Sarah, it's Grant Russell here.
Yes, Grant.
Hi everyone. Thanks for all of us for joining. I just wanted to ask Sarah, there's going to be other articles that are impact related that don't necessarily come up in the systematic review, in the reviews, and I'm wondering if you'd like those, our own sort of databases or whatever sent to you, or whether sort of the intent of this is really to be particularly the articles collected under the scoping review.
No, we will also be adding what we collected with the environmental scan. So yeah, we can, the purpose of that database is really to have a lot of information in it accessible for the team. So yes, if we have other documents that were not retrieved using the scoping review or the component 2 of the Project 1, I think that yes, that they could be sent to us and we could add them and just add keywords and tags to them. And, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I just had a quick question. I just wanted to say first up, this is Nilakshi from the Victorian Lip. It looks really interesting and I can't wait to get my hands on it and have a play. I was just wondering about the term levers, and I was hoping you could explain that a little further. It's not something I've seen before. I just wanted to ask how that relates back to the database.
So perhaps I could answer that question. In fact, in the typology, you'll see at the very end of the typology, we actually included a section that says levers. And this is because when we were going through it, there was actually relatively few interventions that actually addressed affordability. And for instance, financial incentives that are provided to providers, it's hard to, they're not really affecting the affordability. So they look like they should fit under affordability. They're actually levers or mechanisms that were used to enhance the power of a particular intervention. So they're not really components that were, they were part of the design of the intervention, but it's hard to say that they were organizational components that actually addressed affordability or one of the other elements. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It's really helpful. Thank you.
So if there's no other questions.
Any other questions about Mendeley? Well, Sarah, thank you very much for doing this. Sarah and Melanie Ann, this is going to be such a useful tool, and I think that many of us are seeing the usefulness for something like this outside the scoping project. And maybe, as you were saying, Grant, I don't know if we should think about another place of gathering other types of data as well. So I want to pass the presentation now to Laurelie, and she is going to present us about ways that we can search the results of the scan.
Yes, thank you, Jeannie. Can you all hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Good, good. So this is the database that we've developed from the environmental scan survey. So the aim was really to develop an easy-to-use and searchable database where you can look for examples of innovations from the survey, and you search using the access determinants that were presented earlier. So these access determinants were color-coded by pairs. So you have both the supply side and the demand side, and they are matched together with using colors. So the way you use it, so you select, for example, you want to look at examples of innovation addressing approachability and ability to perceive, so a pair of access determinant in Australia. Then you tick show results. So it opens another spreadsheet, and here you have the results of your search with the name of the innovation, a very brief description that was provided by the survey respondent, and you also have the components of innovation that was directly, identified from the typology. And you have a list of results for that. You can also search for components of intervention within this spreadsheet. So for example, you want to look at navigation, and then there you go, and you go next, and next it's in French. I'm sorry, for my computer is programmed in French, but you click next, and you can skip through all the examples that target navigation. If you want to conduct another search, you always need to press reset, and you're ready to go. So let's say you want to tick availability only and Canada. Well, there you go. You have some examples. Some are in French, very few are in French. Most of them are in English, and it's the same process for all the search that you wanna undertake. So that's fairly easy to use. I don't know if you have any questions, or maybe Jane, you want to add something to it. It is password protected, so it's meant like you cannot really modify anything to it. It's password protected, but you can conduct as many searches as you want with it.
Thanks, Laurelie. I will add one thing just to explain the colour coding there that you've done.
Yes.
So you'll see the access determinants, and they're put together in pairs, and we may alter that in the future, but at the moment they're in pairs, and you can see the different colours go together across the demand and supply side, across the access domains. That's the only thing I'd add. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Laurelie, I have a question. Is there a way that we could also get access to the links that people provided? Are they in the database as well?
Yeah, the website links that were provided by the survey respondents are sort of in another database. So I suppose we could ask our database manager, Constantia, who developed this, to explore some potential ways of adding that information. But maybe Jane, you want to add a few, maybe you want to answer to this, because I know it's it can appear like an easy task, but it's not necessarily easy for Constantia, isn't it, Jane?
Oh, well, I think that the issue is around that there's not many website links for the examples. There's some, but most of the fields would be vacant. But if that was something, and I'm not sure what proportion we have website links for, we do. I think the other thing that we would say is that it would be really useful for people to use this database in conjunction with the previous 20 vignettes that were sent around as part of the PowerPoint presentation, because Lauralee has selected out the ones that do have web links, etc., for those 20 vignettes. And they are also a lot more detail. And so what we need to do, if people really want the websites and links, we need to go and find them mostly, because people haven't actually given them in their responses. And we would have to search and find them and make sure they're okay and put them in and do that for each innovation, which is all doable. It's just a matter of time to do it, and whether that's worthwhile doing for every single one, I don't know. I think we just want feedback from what people are going to find useful, and then we can work out how much time it would take to do it. But it did take, Lauralee, you might want to say how long it took you to do the 20 vignettes that we've given to everybody already. So maybe we could see whether people have used the vignettes and whether they're useful, or whether they've gone to all the links or not. That would be
It was definitely a lengthy process, because I needed to double check everything, as you mentioned, Jane, because some of the websites, for example, one website was inexistent at the time when I checked it, so needed to sort of look for the most recent version. So we really need to be careful, so assembling the vignettes took me a few days. It was also a matter of selecting what appeared to be the most promising interventions that really went across all the access determinants. So it was looking to have a certain variety in the examples, building the vignettes. But it's definitely a lengthy process. I know that we do have, website and stuff, but yeah, I agree with you, Jane. It would be, we can always ask Constantia, but it's not only a matter of, it's really double checking everything. Yeah.
So Lauralee and Jane, thank you so much for that information, because in fact you have provided a huge suite of tools now. I want to say that I did go to those links that you provided in the previous document, and I found them very useful and very helpful. So thank you for taking so much time, Lauralee, to make sure that the links were accurate and live, because it's a very useful tool. So just, are there any other questions? You can either chat, put them in the chat line, or unmute yourself and ask.
This is great. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. It's very helpful. So maybe my naive question is just, so where, do we have a link as to where it is on Partage?
Well, I suppose this document will be available on Partage, and Sarah, I think we've discussed that previously, but you were going to add the documents, and they were going to be accessible maybe tomorrow or in a few days. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And I will send an email out to everybody that was invited to that webinar today, and you will receive the link where to find it on Partage.
Good. Okay.
It's Grant here. I just wanted to echo the thanks. This is fantastic, and it's going to be really useful, and I'd just really urge all of the LIPs to use this, and just to broaden our imagination as to what sort of interventions could be able to match the needs that we're identifying in the varied regions. So thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much again, Sarah and Lauralee, for this work. And we would really it would really help us, all the lip coordinators and everybody, to let us know how you're using it. And if you think that if you have any suggestions for how it can be improved or what you'd like to sort of, you know, if it's something that we think we can fix, maybe we can do that. But it's really important for us to understand how you're using it. So we are probably, I'm going to suggest, Sarah, that we actually start a discussion forum on Partage, and that as you use it, that you would just begin to sort of write, you know, impressions. How was this used in your lips? How, you know, was this helpful? Did this help clarify your discussions around specific interventions and so on? So anything that you can capture on how you're actually using this would be really, really helpful for us.
Can I ask, will it be put on the public site on Partage? So will we be able to have our lip partners access that?
I'm sure that we could do that. That we hadn't actually resolved that. We thought we would either put it in a lip implementation place or on the public site. Sarah, do you have any intrinsic objections to putting it on the public site?
Not at all. I think the question should be asked to Laura Lee.
Laura Lee, are you okay with it
Pardon me?
being on the public site? And Jane?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Look, I can't see any problem with that. I can't see any problem with it being on the public site. I think the thing is really whether maybe the only thing would be whether we get people to use it for, you know, a month or so and give feedback and things like that, and then improve it before, you know, we put it on. I mean, who will use it on the public site? We could improve it and have it as a sort of product
Jane,
that's improved via the lips.
just so you know, the public site is called the public site, but it's only the members of Partage that have access to that space. So it's not.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Of course. I thought you meant the public, the wide, broad public. I thought we might want to make it look a bit fancier before we release it.
Partners,
Yeah.
Americans, partners of Partage, Impact that have access to the public space on Partage. So it stays with the family, within the family, I would say.
And just to clarify, Simone, I think that this means that if your partners that you're working with closely don't have access to Partage right now, I think that is something that is just a matter of making sure that they do. If they're a member of the LIP and the core team, that, you know, obviously they need to be able to have access to Partage.
Okay.
Great. Well, if there's no more questions, I think that this is a good time to end a meeting early. How often does that happen? And what a great gift to finish something a little bit early, and then to have such great tools that have been developed for us by Jane and Laura Lee's team and Sarah and Melanie Ann. So thank you very much. And I just want to wish everybody also a wonderful rest over the holidays, lots of joy, lots of food. The exercise you'll do in January, so don't worry about it. And it's really great fun working with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Same here. Same sentiments. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.